Back to Saturday. If you were watching this and your Saturday did not quite go as you had planned. So, one of the questions that's come up a bunch of different times on these live shows is if I had a wish list, if I could only have X come from Mopar, what would that X be? And, it's kind of fun to sit down with your, if you're of a certain age, you remember the Big Sears catalog, right? It's kind of fun to sit down with your Big Sears catalog and start putting together a wish list. And if you had really any idea for what performance is going to be moving forward, a part of that is going to be, a big portion of that would be EVs, right? But when you think about it, we don't really, at this stage of the game, we're not close enough to EVs to be able to table a sophisticated conversation about what could be the next EV muscle car. Because what ends up happening is you start getting these numbers get thrown at you over and over and over again that are huge dollar sign numbers. And I get it, there's an early adopter tax and all this other stuff that comes with it when we're talking about these big horsepower, big performance EVs. So in saying all of that, I'm not going to really talk about my wish list for an EV platform. I am a major fan of the e-tron and the Taycan. That to me represents the real next step in EV technology and EV horsepower, EV muscle car ideas, okay? But again, that's too pricey. We need cars that are actually going to be realistically feasible and viable in the marketplace, for regular folks like us to buy. So let's start out, obviously, with the elephant in the room, Challenger and Charger. So the LX platform has gotten a little bit long in the tooth, but what you have to remember is that the LX platform started off life as the old E-Class. And when I say old, I don't mean the last generation. I mean the generation before the last generation. We're talking about an E-Class that saw the likes of the Mercedes E55 AMG, a supercharged sedan that, rolling around with a NAG 1, mind you, would put a hurting on folks, especially when, smaller pulleys and everything else were introduced to that platform. In fact, there's some parts of the world where they're still a big deal. 750 horsepower to the rear wheels was really nothing uncommon. But that's how far back this platform goes. If you sit in any Charger, you are sitting in a car that is, just by feel and everywhere, steering wheel, ergonomics, the whole bit, identical to a W211 Mercedes-Benz platform. They even sound the same when you close the doors. I mean, it's funny like that. So anyway, here's my wish list for the Challenger and the Charger. Somebody just flew in my throat. What I would love is for Stellantis to maybe start, giving Mercedes-Benz a little bit of a wink. I don't think that there's any platform in the lineup that does any justice to the brand of Dodge. You've got to have a platform that'll hold a Hemi engine, the Hellcat platforms, etc. So what would you get? Well, there's nothing in existence now on the FCA Stellantis side, aside from the current LX platform. But look at the latest C-Class and E-Class coupes and sedans from Mercedes-Benz. Roll with me on this. I'll paint a picture for you. Dodge is walking down the beach one day, and here comes the X, Mercedes-Benz. And they bump into each other, and it's like a hey, what's up, and a hey, what's up, and hey, remember those good times that we had? And, of course, Dodge is going, yeah, well, we're still kind of, nursing along with, our kids, the LX platform. And Mercedes is like, yeah, I hear the kids are doing good. And Dodge is like, yeah, I think they're doing pretty good too. But they kind of hook up. Like they have a few drinks and, you know, things get a little sloppy. Next thing you know, they start firing out kids again. At this time, though, they're based around the C-Class and the E-Class coupes and sedans. That would be my number one go-to as far as some type of a platform upgrade. Because you have to remember, cars rarely have their own base platform. The Mustang, I think, does, but it was still derivative of like a Jaguar platform. It keeps going back, S550, back before that, and everything before that. I think it was still derivative of the S-Class platform from Jaguar when Ford owned them. But I don't know, my memory's kind of foggy on those platform, beget platform, you know, things. But anyway, the reality is that you have to have a place to build from. The LX platform, as great as it is, not only is it a little bit long in the tooth, it's a little bit heavy, but you have to remember, it works great as a muscle car platform and nothing really else. And so if they could just switch the platform over, bring in the C-Class coupe, bring in the E-Class sedan, have a little bit smaller car, but not too much smaller, either using the E-Class or the C-Class platform, it really wouldn't matter. But you would be able to build upon that something that is a little bit more update, a little bit lighter maybe, still use the same engine platforms. I don't know, it kind of sounds like a win all the way around, but that would be my first, I don't know, wish list. If you're gonna, you know, think outside the box a little bit, go with the girl that brought you and take a look at what you could do maybe with a updated licensing through Mercedes-Benz for that type of platform. Because here's the thing, guys, we're not hearing anything coming from Mopar on any level as far as any new platform, any updates for the Challenger, any updates for the Charger. And as fun as it is to speculate, and again, throw out wish lists and what if scenarios, those are always fun. But if you don't have the platform to move into moving forward, like there's no direct line of sight product, then what ends up happening is that guys that are maybe in the market in the next couple of years to get something new end up going to another manufacturer. And that's obviously not something that we're looking for. So there's my first wish list item, if you will. So let me check in with you guys real quick. Kobe was first in. Mike Young saying, good evening, Professor Mason. Got the arm flex. I like it. Kobe saying, have you heard of the RPM Act? Yes, it's the same RPM Act in one way or another that's been in and out of SEMA and in and out of our lives since forever. This is something that has come up over and over and over again with different names and things like that. And what it basically is that you can't have tuners, you can't have manufacturers that turning your street car into a race car basically is what it's all about. I'm a big fan of private property rights. If I buy something, I own that something that I buy, and I can do with it whatever I want. If I want to take that thing on a racetrack in the middle of the desert, turn it into a boat, an airplane, a space shuttle, it doesn't matter to me. If it's mine, it shouldn't matter to anybody. So stuff like this has been shot down every time that it's come up, and I'm not sure what level we're at with this one. They always go through different DEFCON levels with these types of things too. So one of them was there was a big deal with repowering cars with modern fuel-injected engines. If you repowered it with a fuel-injected engine, you had to run catalytic converters. It wasn't year compliance, it was year of engine compliance. That was one of the laws. God, that's going back like freaking 100 years ago, though. So anyway, yes, I'm aware of this act and that motion and those bills or whatever. Yeah, for sure. And it's nothing new. Let's see. Quick breaks checking and say, what up, buddy? What up, Quick? Kobe saying Mercedes would be a good marriage again. Absolutely. And Moto X is saying, hey, Brian, what's up, Moto X? So, yeah, the big deal right now is the topic of conversation with Mopar guys goes like this. Man, if it only weighed less, it'd be so much faster. If it was only, what would something the weight of the Mustang or the Camaro, what would that car run if it had, the 6.4 in it, or the Hellcat engine in it, or whatever the case might be. And, I tell you, I'm not going to be far from that as well. I mean, when you look at what the 6.4 is capable of doing in some of these barges that we're driving around, and it kind of blows my mind. You start looking at what cars like Quick Bricks can do, with a mild cam that's designed to basically just make the car act like the engine is bigger. It's a good cam all the way around. Car goes out and runs super low 11s, damn near pulling the front tires off the ground. So yeah, if that combination was in a lot lighter car, obviously we'd be talking a completely different ball game. And I think that's what a lot of folks are really leaning towards right now. And I understand, though, that a lot of us buy the Mopars because of the size, because they're bigger cars, because they're more comfortable cars. A lot of folks buy Mopars because they are not sports cars, okay? There's a big difference. A sports car to me is something that is flickable, right? A pony car is something that is basically a flickable four-seater car. And, when you start getting into sports cars and pony cars, then you have muscle car. Muscle cars were never flickable. Muscle cars were always big. Muscle cars always rode nice. It's just that they were fast and made a bunch of power and lit up the tires and did a lot of fun stuff. The thing, though, is this. A lot of folks have owned these cars now, and really we're talking about the 2015 and up cars because that is the last update that we got from Dodge, whether it was powertrain or interior or what have you. That was the last significant upgrade, I should say. You can say, oh, the Red Eye and the Demon. Yeah, no. They're just variants of a Hellcat in general. So since 2015, now we're in the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Don't forget, you count the first and you count the year you're in, 7th year of production. And the reason why that's significant is the Mustang, which is constantly going through revisions. You almost don't want to compare yourself to the Mustang. But the Mustang has gone through several revisions. And the Camaro, maybe a facelift, but not so much, especially in powertrain. That's not who you need to be keeping up with. To really set the stage, you've got to be going up against the Mustang. And the reality here is that no matter what folks have said about wanting a quicker car because it's smaller, they do keep buying the bigger cars. But we are 7 model years deep into this. And in my opinion, there's really only a couple of more years worth of patience left. I understand 2023 is supposed to have a model shift, and that's supposed to be an update or a facelift or something like that. But the thing is that we're not hearing any rumors of that. We're not hearing any, there's no scuttle about any of that. There's no, hey, by the way, guys, let me leak this out there to you. There's none of that. And so without having anything to talk about, we're left to generate our own, choose your own adventure book when it comes to what could be or what would be with Dodge. And I don't think Stellantis is going to stray too far from the recipe. I keep talking about that. Don't stray from the recipe. Well, this is one area where Stellantis bought Dodge, Ram, and Jeep primarily for the image that is out there. So I wouldn't look to them to change too much, but it still begs the question. We keep hearing about Hellcat variants over and over and over again. at some point, the Hellcat variants are no longer viable, or at least no longer competitive in the face of what some of these EVs can offer up. So, to that end, you're still going to be looking at EVs as your high performance variant, which in some cases is kind of neat, but in a lot of cases it isn't. And what I mean by a lot is it's a lot of that money. You think a Hellcat's expensive or a Red Eye's expensive. What if they e-tron release style one of these cars? And do it the right way, a 2-speed or maybe even a 3-speed automatic, lots of power. Or whatever power it's got, it would at least have a transmission to run through. And next thing you know, you've got an whatever running like a very powerful, naturally aspirated or supercharged engine. That's where the EVs really start to come into their own. Downside to Tesla is they just don't have a transmission. They're all hard and then they just lay over. Whereas like an e-tron or a Taycan, it's and then it shifts and it just keeps pulling. So anyway, I guess what I'm voicing here is a bit of a concern or a worry on my part that you would have a situation where there wouldn't be a significant gasoline-powered hot rod leading into, of course, the Hellcat stuff would still be around, but naturally aspirated is what I'm talking about, leading into what would be your high-end, high-performance, ultra expensive at this point, performance variant. Anyway, getting back to it, MotoX is saying, hey, Brian. Captain Scat saying, good evening, Professor Mason. Good evening, everybody. What's up, man? I was asking, is there a thing of making a car too light and all you do is blow the tires off? Not really. You've got to remember that there are a lot of light cars out there that when they launch, they don't blow the tires off. They lift the front tires up into the air. So realistically, though, to get a car, we're talking an automobile here, just in general, most of them are going to weigh about 3,800 to 4,100 pounds. They're all fairly heavy, just in general. You know, so and the reasons for that are you got safety equipment, you've got sound deadening equipment, just the size of the thing. So no, and I've had some lightweight cars that made a lot of power, and I've had some heavier cars that just made an absurd amount of power. And you know, they don't necessarily just blow the tires off, but you know, you start getting up into the, you know, 850, 950, a little over 1,000 horsepower range, they do start to get a little, they'll start to haze the tires at miles per hour that if something does go wrong, it goes freaking drastically wrong. So try having one start hazing the tires at about $1.60. So and he's saying, good evening, Professor. Good evening, Anthony. Kev Scat got a good point here. I wish Dodge would do a direct connection software update with the displays the way Tesla does. I also wish they would put proper size width tires on the rear of these Challengers and Chargers. I agree with you 100%. And so one of the issues that I've always had was how do you not have a staggered wheel and tire setup on these cars, Dodge? Doesn't even make sense. I mean, the tire size on the Scat packs is and should be considered offensive to anybody that is into cars and wants to get the most out of these things. That tire combination is pathetic, even for the Hellcats even as well. But what I don't understand is, and I agree with you on this, why can't the Uconnect be more personalized and upgraded and updated? I just, maybe I'm missing something here, but there has got to be some updates and upgrades that you can do with your Uconnect. It's just software. That's it. So anyway, I agree with you 100%. HU37 saying, people always say, what if with Mopar, it's weight. If it's a Mustang, why not more displacement? If it's a Camaro, why does it feel like you're looking at a tank turret when driving it? Yeah, no, it's a really good point, man. And I get it. Every platform has got its... So for you guys, if y'all are new to the channel, where the shop is very close to Velocito, and it's about the time, and it's a pretty decent night too. You might hear some cars running around out there. I am basically on the way to Velocito. So guys will be getting everything warmed up, and the road that this thing is on, you'll hear them kind of buzz through here pretty good sometimes. So anyway, that's what's going on out here. But every platform has its pros and cons, and every platform does have its Achilles heel. Obviously, the Mopar platform is heavy, but that heft isn't necessarily a bad thing. You have to remember that the DNA that LX platform is derived from is the DNA of a sedan that was designed to run at 150 plus miles an hour indefinitely on the Autobahn. So stability is a major key component to that. The Mustang, you know, I got to tell you, the Mustang's difficult to find any actual flaws with. The only problem is that to me, it just doesn't shine in any one area. It buzzes like crazy up on the big end, but there's just not a real sense of torque or throttle response per se with the Mustang, at least in my experience. And then the Camaro, yeah, it looks like you're looking at something out of Mad Max. I mean, I just never really, here's the thing, guys, I wanted desperately to like the Camaro. I really did. And I am on record as saying what a fan of the Gen 5 that I am. So, you know, why am I not a fan of the C6? Well, or I'm sorry, the 6th gen Camaros. I love the C6 Corvette. The reason why I don't like it so much is, number one, the direct injection thing kind of gets on my nerves, but that can be overcome. But it was just an ergonomics thing. I just didn't feel like I fit in the car. In fact, I felt when I sat in the car, I felt like everything was just higher up. I felt like I was riding in, like I was inside the Camaro, and I just couldn't see out of it very well. Anyway, not that that matters. It just felt weird to me. But let's see here. Hang on. I'm going to deal here. Why isn't this thing responding? Oh. Jacob Peters saying, what cold air intake for a 5.7? Well, honestly, man, I mean, depends on the year. If you just want it for the sound and you just want the look and that's about it, JLT is probably the way to go. I like the look of it. I like the sound of it. I think it's a pretty cool setup. I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it. So there's that. Leg Maker is also a cool looking cold air to go with. If you're a Challenger or Charger, obviously the best to go with is going to be the Hellcat variant for you know, Challenger or Charger. But I understand that a lot of guys don't necessarily want to go that route. You know, they're trying to go the route of, they're more interested in going the route of the looks and the sound and everything else. So again, JLT would be number one, or Leg Maker would be number one. And then from there, I mean, that's really it. Other than just a drop-in for your stock airbox. Kobe's saying, I want a ZL1, but I don't fit in one too. You know, and that's the thing. It felt funny to me because when I saw the ZL1, first of all, the first Camaro I ever sat in, it didn't fit right. And it didn't fit right, I think, for one, there was like a psychological thing going on here. When I saw the car, I was very underwhelmed by it. It looked like every other car that was sitting on the lot. And so because it looked like every other car that was sitting on the lot, it's just like, I'm not really all that excited about this thing. And then I got into the car and it was just more of that kind of a cheapy feel to it. And the Dodges just had the upgrades, just had the redesign. The Mustangs, at this stage of the game, were really stepping their game up in terms of ergonomics. And so the Mustang was so much better in terms of ergonomics that really it didn't matter what the Mustang drove like at that point. The ergos were just so freaking good. You can, make a car faster or whatever, but the ergos were always really nice. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. Callus is asking, does a Hellcat airbox and intake necessarily create more power on a 392? So I'll tell you this, anecdotally, they will pick up on the highway. They'll pick up a little bit at the drag strip. It's not a lot, though. You're looking at maybe half a tenth at the most. So don't expect them to get you a ton, but it'll be the difference in a roll race between you just tiptoeing away from somebody and not, right? So that's really what you're looking at in terms of the difference, because they're both just trying to introduce fresh, cooler air, just making fresher and cooler air available to the engine in general. There is no ram air effect or anything like that. So, and here's the other thing. I've tested so many intakes that I don't even know where to start at this point in terms of like best, worst, this, that, everything else. Once you get going, basically all of them cool off fairly quickly. The big issue that you have is if you're drag racing. And the problem there is you'll end up heating up the engine compartment, especially if your fans kick on, and you get all this fan wash inside the engine compartment. Now, instead of being ambient, everything is getting washed with 170, 180, 190 plus degree air coming off of that radiator because of the fans. Well, if your air filter is getting hit with that same fan wash, then at launch, you're basically launching the thing with an inlet air charge temperature that is sky high. It throws you into hot spark tables, which means it's yanking timing, and the car just won't perform as well. But once you get rolling and you're into the throttle for more than, say, 3 or 4 seconds, that temperature will plummet, and it'll basically more or less come down to ambient-ish. But here's the problem. For that 2, 3, or 4 seconds, you're down on power, and in the meantime, your competition, your competitor is kind of motoring up ahead of you. So the car still may mile an hour halfway decent, but you just don't get the launch. Just some things to consider when you're talking about using those types of cold air systems. Just depends on what you're using the car for. If you're doing roll racing, well, or you're just playing around with the thing on the freeway, you'll never notice the difference. The car might sound a little bit more butch with that other intake system on it. And no one's the wiser whether or not it's making more power. But just in general terms, from all of the testing that I've done with 392 stuff, the difference between the Hellcat airbox, the stock airbox, the Mopar cold air, the leg maker, and the AEM and everybody else's stuff, the pivot product would be the stock system, to be honest with you. And then from there, the Hellcat systems did the best. The leg maker was extremely close in terms of performance at that power level. And then, I've also done the testing with the Hellcats. You start talking about, taxing the filter flow capacity and, airflow requirements of the engine and all that. The reason why I say it like that is because a supercharged engine is going to act a little bit differently in terms of intake pulses and intake waves, pulse waves. So believe it or not, it's just easier to make a supercharged engine happy than it is for a naturally aspirated engine. So, if you were to take a Hellcat airbox with a Hellcat filter for any of these cars with the snorkel to go along with it, you would be hard pressed to beat that. Now, I understand that for a Charger, the earlier Chargers, up until like 19 or whatever, it's a train wreck to try to put that Hellcat snorkel in there because it's, you got to take the bumper off and all of that. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. There's so much that goes into it, but as far as what's best, what makes any more power, You won't see it on it. Well, let me rephrase this. You might see it on a dyno only because there's ways to trick airflow. There's ways to, expose the filter to cleaner, fresher air while it's on the dyno with the hood up and all that. But in real life, in real conditions with the car on the street, it's a different story. So what you see on the dyno does not always translate into the real world. And weirdly enough, with Mopars, nothing on the dyno translates into real world actual results. Little horsepower gains on a Mopar seem to equate to big ET gains. It's weird. Donald Power saying, good evening, Mr. B. Mason. Good evening, Donald. Hey, Kobe saying, getting my 309 gear with the tax money. Any suggestions? Well, obviously, if y'all are thinking about going with a 309, then I would suggest one of two things: either a pedal commander to go along with it, or obviously a tune to go along with it, and then you can adjust shift parameters and rev limits and things like that, so that you don't get into any weird predictive shift issues if you're taking the car to the drag strip in really cold air. So, but no, just my suggestion to you is make sure you got tires on hand. That's about it. Chip off a little bit of that Uncle Sam folding money and get some tires. Speed Freak, what's up, buddy? Saying, hey, B, at what horsepower level do the Hellcat axles need to be upgraded, and what do you upgrade to? Good question. It's debatable. The thing is that the Hellcat axles will take a beating for a long, long time. So which ones would I recommend? I would recommend either moving to a set of Red Eye / Demon axles would be my first, the first place that I would go. From there, you could go to G-Force or DSS, either way, but in those cases, they typically will have a lifetime warranty. So really the extra cost, you're just buying yourself a warranty there. But in terms of what horsepower level would I swap mine out? Dude, okay, so if I were going to be proactive with this, I would probably swap them out at about the 800 horsepower to the rear wheels on a dyno jet. I'm sorry, on a Mustang dyno, and probably like 840, 850 to the wheels on a Mustang, 800 on a Mustang dyno, 840, 850 on a dyno jet. The reason why I say that is because the hardware over time just starts to fatigue. And if you get into wheel hop or anything like that, well, all bets are off, brother. But if you're just taking it to the drag strip, you're on street tires, you're just playing around with it, not really getting the thing into wheel hop or anything like that, don't worry about it. You'll be in good shape. Just go ahead and hold what you got. Really, the drive shaft thing and the axles thing are more, frankly, focused towards guys with drag strip aspirations in mind. The 17 and 18 and up Hellcat Chargers and Challengers do have a little bit beefier drive shaft. And at the power level that I'm at right now, my stock axles, I don't think, are in any danger of having any issues. So there you have it. Hopefully that answers the question. And, again, they are kind of a consumable product, but as long as you are not getting into wheel hop that hard, I think you'll be in good shape for a long time. Alberta's saying, good evening, B. I feel you on the 5th gen Camaros. I know, I love them, man. I had 2010 SS, and it was fun, but driving every day got old. Rough seats and visibility sucked. And that's the thing. I don't know why I've got such an affinity for the 5th gen, and I just, about the 6th gen. I don't know, man. For whatever reason, I just could not fall in love with the 6th gen until I saw the ZL1. And then I saw the ZL1 and I was like, man, that's what the car is supposed to look like. And then from there, it was, okay, well, what can you do to this car? And the problem, see, y'all know me. I'm not at this stage of the game. I've already kind of been there and done that with going real crazy and real expensive with builds. I would prefer to have that money in the bank and have something fun that I can really enjoy. Well, the thing is that the ZL1, the thing that bummed me out about it was that it came with that small supercharger. With the small supercharger, what that means is that you're spinning it harder, you're generating a lot more heat. There's some efficiency issues that come along with that. And to be honest with you, the fastest ones that I had seen, well, they weren't all that fast stock. I mean, you're looking at 1130s, 1140s, maybe 1120s in good air on good tires, but that was it. And I was always bummed out by it. I kept thinking that the ZL1 was always shortchanged somehow. And, you know, why put this itty bitty blower on a car that is supposed to be track focused? Because an itty bitty blower on a car that's supposed to be track focused is going to do nothing but turn itself into a heat pump, right? So I had a lot of questions about that car. There's a lot of things about it that I just did not understand. And so I ended up just basically being a little bit disenchanted with it. So anyway, Scat saying, hey B, is it normal for my oil temperature to heat up 20 to 30 degrees after doing unprepped surface hits? Oh yeah. I did 60 to 60 hits earlier today and I noticed it was 244, but came back down pretty quickly. Yeah. You'll see that fairly regularly. What you want to do is run a cooler thermostat. You got to remember that the oil cooler itself is actually, it's part of the coolant system. So yeah, run a cooler thermostat, get those temps down a little bit. But here's the thing. It's actually kind of a funny thing. If you look at the viscosity of a 0W40, the 0W40 at the elevated temperatures has a viscosity that is extremely similar to like a 30 weight at 212 degrees. 100 degrees Celsius, which is the boiling point of water. That's kind of that's the pivot number for oil temperatures and for coolant temperatures, because that's how you get to evaporate any condensation or moisture out of your oil. And, you know, the viscosity is fine, and modern oils work around that temperature. But you never want to run them really much hotter than that for very long. And what you might notice is that if you've got a stock thermostat, for example, a real good example is Buffy, the white work truck. That truck, the oil temps hover between 212 and 226 all the time, no matter what. So, and it's supposed to, it gets all the impurities, no, not about that, but any moisture, any condensation, anything like that, it's basically just, it evaporates very quickly and can't exist in the oil at those temperatures. So, anyway, normal, yes. Get a lower thermostat, yes. A 190, 192, 195. I know that there's several in that range. You don't have to have a tune for those. 180, you might throw a code. 170, you absolutely will throw a code. But if you're just playing around on the street, not going to make that much of a difference. But yes, it's normal. Summer Night saying, sup, E? Sup, Summer? Let's see. Oh, it's Captain Scats is finishing up quickly after he finished. Yep, and those temps will come down pretty quick. Queech is asking, which Mustang generation looks best to you? For me, something about those 11 to 14s. Got to see a 13-14 black Shelby gunning down I-10. That was amazing. So I tell you what, man, I love if it's set upright, the 07 GT500, that kind of the boxy look, that kind of the big booty boxy look. I like that in that car when they're lowered just a little bit on stock wheels and tires, maybe a +1 size in the back or something like that. I really like that look a lot. I also, man, I mean, when it comes to Mustangs in general, this latest Mustang is probably my favorite, just because it looks so good. I'm just a big fan of those things. So, Foxes are fun. They bring back a lot of memories, but I'm not old enough to remember anything older than that, but I don't know. There's just something about that very first run the 05, 07, 09 GT 500s that just always puts a big dumb smile on my face. And that's the car that that's the car that made me fall in love with the GT 500s anyway. So to me, I was like, I don't care what this thing, what they do with it after this. This is really cool and it's fast and fun enough for me. So those were my favorites anyway. Sovereign saying 6th gen seems like it's trying to look like a modern Mustang. Well, the problem with any of the Camaros is that they've always tried to be more Mustang than Mustang. Sometimes they do well at that. Other times they don't do that well. Ken's asking, any timing tuning tips on stock Gen 3 Viper with HP tuners? Depends on the fuel that you're going with. Here's the funny thing. Vipers don't really respond to tuning as well as you might think. But the general timing parameters still apply. Don't try to over time them though. They are known to go into spark knock pretty easily, especially down low. But, your typical, you can bump them up 2 degrees down low, maybe give them a degree around peak torque. And then as RPM increases, you might be able to get away with, 3 more degrees. But if you're on a dyno, you have to put it like this. Here's the funny thing about Vipers. You have to have them on a dyno and you've got to, each one's just a little bit different, but you've got to find out where the car is not liking timing. And again, those cars just don't respond real well to timing changes. It's just kind of a weird thing. But anyway, if you follow that protocol, that'll get you close. Partial throttle, you can typically add, you could almost flag the entire table at about 2 degrees and you'd be okay. I don't really recommend that, but you could, because there's some areas you'd want to throw a little bit more than that. But if you just want to pick up a little bit overall under partial throttle, make it a little bit snappier, you can do that too. But wide open throttle, just don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of it. But keep an eye on fuel quality with that. HE37 saying, what's the stall speed on a Scat Pack or Hellcat torque converter? I will tell you that they will flash to 3,000 RPM with no problem. Saying, I see some people go with a high stall torque converter with a 5.7 and not so much on upper trim levels. That's because guys with 5.7s don't mind spending money and throwing converters in their cars because they've got the money to throw at them in terms of camshafts and other things as well as gears and things like that. So one of the other things is that the 6.4 has, for whatever reason, never really taken off in terms of throwing converters on them for a few reasons. One, they're already more expensive. And so doing that kind of work to that car it's just adding expense to a car that's already fairly expensive. And to be honest with you, it kind of takes away from the fun part about driving a 392. One of the big things about the 392, it's got high compression, a wide lobe separation angle cam. It's real snappy under partial throttle, and going with a high stall converter takes that driving dynamic away from the 392. It's one of the reasons why a lot of times we would see guys that would do these builds with 426s and 392s, and they just end up not keeping them that long. They end up selling them, and then they sell them again, and they turn hands pretty quickly because they're just not fun to drive at that point. But the 5.7's a little bit different story for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think that it freaks out predictive shift as hard as it does with the 6.4. There's something deeper in the algorithms that I just, for whatever reason, have found that the 6.4s don't like the converters as much. It might have something to do with the fact that they flash too hard. Where the 5.7 doesn't make as much power as the 6.4, so it just doesn't freak out the operating system when it flashes like that. There's some stuff that you just can't tune, and with as powerful as HP and Diablo are, there's just some things you can't dig into and adjust. Part of that's predictive shift, and I mean, you can make it work, but it's just, it works better with the 5.7s. But a lot of the guys here's the thing, once they get it to the level, this is the 6.4 guys, once they get the car to roughly that level where you're going to go with a converter and gearing and all that other stuff, you don't see a lot of guys doing it, because even with the converter and the gearing and everything else that you throw at it, it's still not going to be as fast as a Hellcat. And the Hellcat is always the elephant in the room when you're a 6.4 owner anyway. So you start looking at the money that you're going to spend. That looks like a pretty healthy down payment on a car that will always be faster than whatever you try to do to your naturally aspirated 392. So there's that. I mean, when you have that proposition ahead of you, it just removes or at least reduces significantly the willingness to get out there and do it with those cars. Whereas the 5.7, I mean, 5.7s just from a dollars and cents point of view are a lot less expensive. You can have actually a lot more fun in a lot of ways with the 5.7. And oh, I don't know if y'all can hear that one. Hang on. Oh, he rolled out of it. Anyway, and also too, you know, the truck guys, that's another thing. I mean, you've got guys right now with the trucks. I use the term very liberally because there's not a lot of truck left in that truck, but you've got guys naturally aspirated with the trucks that are in the tens, and I mean deep into the tens. And a lot of that is just because they're able to remove a lot of weight. You can unbolt a lot of weight out of those trucks. And I just don't know that you can do it with the LX platform. I mean, you can start wholesale removing weight out of a truck just because of how they're built. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. It's kind of a weird situation with the 392 cars. You know, you can get more out of them, but you know, by the time you're done with just all the expense of trying to get that car onto the track with those parts, you're just so deep into Hellcat money at that point. A lot of guys just go a different way. Forshaken, I love the name, saying, hey, B, you an Amsoil fan or stick with Pennzoil? I'm whatever I can get at the store, bud. I mean, I change my oil a lot. So if it's a toss-up between the two, I'm going to go with the Pennzoil, only because I've had good results with the Pennzoil. And as far as universal oil analyses go, Pennzoil does really good. So does Mobil 1. Amsoil is not bad either. I'm not saying that Amsoil is worse. I'm just saying that if you can get your hands on Pennzoil or you can get your hands on Mobil 1 and you're changing your oil fairly regularly, it don't matter. I mean, it really doesn't. And for those that have done the Blackstone universal oil analysis on their oils, a lot of those guys are, I mean, you can just whittle the thing down to the nth degree. You know, you've got, oh my God, I don't even want to get into it because you start going down that rabbit hole, you'll never crawl out of it. But when it comes to oil, that topic does come up a lot. As long as you're using a high quality synthetic, you'll be in good shape. Just remember that if you're running stock thermostats, just like what we were just talking about before with the high oil temperatures, go online. Here's what you do. Go online and look at the viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius. That'll translate into 212 degrees in freedom units. When you look at that number, that CSE viscosity, that's really what you're looking at. So a 10W30 synthetic, or really any 10W30, for example, which is kind of the yardstick that everybody goes by, because it's kind of an easy like homing beacon, if you will. 10W30 is going to be a 10 weight at it's cold outside. Basically at freezing, it's going to act like a 10 weight oil would at that temperature. It doesn't mean it's going to have a viscosity of 10. It means it's going to act like a 10 viscosity weight at that temperature at 0 degrees, 32 degrees in freedom units. So when you raise the temperature to 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees freedom, that viscosity number is not what the viscosity of the oil is, but what that oil's viscosity would be at that, if it at that temperature, it's going to act like that oil's viscosity, or it's going to have that oil's viscosity. And so at this point, it might be a 40 weight, like a 0W40, but at that temperature, it's going to have a viscosity of 13, say. Well, a 10W30 almost always has the equivalency viscosity at 0 of 10 and an actual viscosity of 10 at 212 degrees. And that's just kind of a way to center your head when you're thinking about oil, because I know a lot of guys get really deep into oil, a lot deeper than they need to. So a 40 weight, by example, is going to be 30 weight plus something, right? In terms of viscosity, I think the Pennzoil viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius, if I'm not mistaken, was something like 13. The Mobil ones was like 12-ish. I can't remember what Amsoil was for just a normal 040 or a 540 or a 1040. So that'll give you an idea as far as how to think about oil. The modern synthetics are incredibly good lubricants, and you really can't go wrong. But if you want to educate yourself and put together your own spreadsheet and take a look at it, I had done this years and years and years ago, and after doing it, I figured I learned pretty quickly that it was just, they're all basically the same-ish. But do the research, check out the material sheets on each one of those products, and where they do, and my thing was this: if the manufacturer didn't give those testing parameters, then I didn't buy their oil. If they did, I wanted to see how well they compared against each other in terms of viscosity. And I think Mobil 1 was like right in the middle of all of them in terms of actual viscosity at high temperature. And I was like, you know what? Good enough. So if you plan on running your car in, for example, like you want to do closed circuit racing, you're always going to want to you're going to monitor your oil temperatures. And if you find that your oil temperatures are hovering in that 250, 260, 270 degree range, then you want to run an oil that has that same viscosity that your 040 would have at 212 degrees. You want to try to run that oil that would give you at that temperature roughly the same actual viscosity. It helps to maintain oil pressure. You just have to remember that when the vehicle is cold, you don't ever get on it. You can cause some problems with having way too high of oil pressure until the vehicle gets to operating temperature. And then from there, you'll be just fine. But just something to consider when you're picking and choosing oil and for whatever it is you're going to be doing with your oil. It's a very important topic, by the way. Let's see. Catalyst is asking, what was your complete list of mods that you had done to your SRT before you sold it? And had you kept it, what would you maybe have done? Cool question. So it had one of my intakes on it. It had a Fastman 84 millimeter throttle body, Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter. I had repositioned the air temperature sensor to the front of the airbox. I had put a breather on the the tube that goes to the intake tract, basically the inlet side of the PCV tract and the pressure relief side. It does both. It just functions as both, depending on if you're wide open throttle or not. And it's just your PCV valve is either open or not open. Let's see. I had a Billet Technologies catch can on the car. I had opened up a set of stock exhaust manifolds. Basically just my manifolds had a lot of casting flash in there, so I just opened those up. Tuned by Pite's Performance. reimagined by B. Mason. Mason Performance Tuning. No, but seriously, I had, when I was, and still am associated with Pike's Performance, and I was putting that tune together on that car, so that was kind of a tune by Village, if you will. I had taken the cats off and then put them back on the car because number one, I didn't see any power difference realistically, and number two, it was just a little on the loud side, but that was it. That's really all that was done to that car. Besides a Mopar rear seat delete, that car had the first commercially that I'm aware of rear seat delete. Actually, I had to use my VIN to get it. Let's see, because it was reserved only for SRT vehicles, which was weird because my car, even though it was NA, was an SRT, and so I kind of snuck in there on a technicality. Let's see, was there anything else done to that thing? I don't want to leave anything out. That's it. Again, stock manifolds, stock cats. And then when the transmission went in the car, it got the new operating system. So when I blew the transmission up, I had to go with the new operating system. Slick S550, man, thank you very much. Saying thanks for all the great info. I'm going through your playlist and making my mod list. Well, man, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Man, I try to, when I'm giving advice, I try to give advice from the point of view of a guy that's already tested it on the dyno, on the street, at the drag strip. Street data logs is kind of my thing. Because that's one of the things that I did at Pikes. I was the first one to drive the car, and I was the last one to drive the car normally, unless Alex did the finish up. But it was always kind of a thing where I'll be the first and the last one to drive the car. And so I'm used to data logging, and I'm used to data logging a lot of different parts, just a big varied assortment of you name it. I've been able to test. And so it's kind of neat being able to have conversations with folks about what gains I've seen, what gains I haven't seen, which is kind of more to the point there. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, man, feel free to ask. I'm always happy to chat, obviously. But thank you very much. I really do appreciate that contribution to the cause, my friend. Let's see. Bear with me here. Let me get back. Oh, Queasy saying, yeah, the 05, the 09 Mustangs are gorgeous. I have a black 4.0 I bought in 2017, but I didn't know I could have afforded the 4.6 for literally $1,000 or $2,000. I was new to Mustangs. Man, I'll tell you something. I did a video, it's been a while back, I think it was probably 3 years ago, about my thoughts on the 3-valve Mustangs. Like the freaking unsung hero, man. Unsung hero because I don't think that engine ever got the development. Like, I think its life was cut a little bit short by the Coyote. 10 years ago when that Coyote was introduced, it represented a significant leap forward in terms of power. But my thought was, damn, cool, good on Ford for doing that. But I always felt that the 3-valve had one more shot at it. The different intake, maybe revised camshafts or something like that, to get it up around 365 or 375 horsepower. I always figured it had that in it, but it never really got to that point. I think it capped at like 320 or something like that, if I'm mistaken. I apologize, but anyway, I always liked it, but it had its faults and its flaws, but I always thought it was just left a little bit short. Queasy's hanging out with Sovereign. Oh, Slick 550 saying, what's up, Brian? Well, my GT350 and Roush Charge GT are both gone and replaced by a 21 Challenger Scat Pack. I like it. What an amazing fun car that gives me the comfort I long for in the S550s. Well, there's that. And, I got to be honest with you. It's kind of interesting to hear somebody going from Mustang to Dodge. Usually it's the other way around, frankly. But, I tell you something. It's easy to see man. It's easy to see why you would want to. I mean, like I say, the Mopars are just big and comfy for sure, but congratulations on the new acquisition. Tuxedo saying, hey, dude, how's life? Man, I am doing well, better than I deserve to be. Also, what do you think of my new profile picture I created, all drawn from my tablet? Man, I haven't seen it. Let's see. And I can't see it here. Let's see. Can I even see that? Oh. But I bet you, buddy, if you did it, it looks awesome, man. I'll have to check it out after the show. Mark's saying, Professor Mason, didn't know you were streaming, but I'm here. Nice. Anybody have any exhaust recommendations for Frosty? It's a 5.7 Challenger. Yeah, you know, for me, exhaust is always going to be subjective. I can tell you what I know to work well. That's the MagnaFlow stuff. You can always go with a full takeoff setup from a 6.4. That's always an option as well. So, you know, don't sell your options short. But any option is a good option on a 5.7 because they just come from the factory a little bit detuned. And that's part of that detuning is the exhaust system. So I'm hanging out with Queasy. Tuxedo saying, also, I'm sorry I couldn't come to your previous live video you made. My YouTube account doesn't show that much videos that well. That's just YouTube's algorithms at work, my friend. Midnight. Tuxedo's playing Midnight Club, a car game about street racing, and yep. So back in the day, I used to play the old Midnight Club. That was a fun game, man. That's an old school game for me. Let's see. And thanks again, Slick. I appreciate that very much. Sovereign saying, hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Cody's saying, my Mopar wish list, bring back SRT4. There's that. Turbo the Hellcats, if possible. Make a Charger coupe that's lighter than the Challenger, but carries a supercharged 5.7. You know, it's funny that let's talk about that supercharged 5.7 because that is something that was thrown around a lot back in the day. There was a bit of a push for a supercharged variant of the 5.7 at one point. It never really grew any legs, and I think the reason why is you had engines like the 6.1 and 6.4 just with the larger bore diameter, but you know, you got to remember that the 6.2 is just the 6.4 bore with a 5.7 stroke. So in a way, it kind of is there, at least in spirit, if nothing else, in the Hellcat. But don't forget that the Hellcat original test bed engine was actually a 6.4 liter, not a 5.7 liter. So kind of interesting stuff, a little bit of a neat history there. But at one point, there was a, who made it? God, y'all will probably know this. I cannot remember it. Their logo was like some kind of falcon or an eagle or I don't know, some kind of bird. Anyway, they were selling these supercharged 5.7s in dealerships for a while. And they never really caught on. And it wasn't, sorry, there's a Skeeter Eater that's right here in front of like, dude, what are you doing? They never really caught on. They were kind of pricey, and they didn't really walk all over a 6.4, and so I guess that's why they didn't really sell. But I cannot remember what the hell it was. Anyway, I always thought that was kind of a cool car. But at any rate, Mark's saying also just bought a cold air intake, getting those first little minor bolt-on mods going before I go voiding that factory warranty, opening up the Hemi. Yeah, just make sure you take all of those cold air kits and everything else off of the car if you have to have any service or warranty work done at the dealership. Cody said, honestly, as badass as the 5.0 is, it's just something about the 3-valve that just interests me more than the 5.0. Can't forget the New Edge and the Termies. True that. The New Edge was basically just a continuation of the Fox platform-ish. It was like a pretty well-revised version of the Fox platform. And, you know, nobody loves the Terminators more than me. I love those cars to death. Again, the Terminator is one of those cars where I'm surprised I never owned one. Just like the GT500. In fact, the GT500 more so than the Termi Cobra, but I always loved those cars. And you got to remember, those cars are significant historically because, and the Lightning too, the Gen 2 Lightning, those vehicles didn't ever have to exist. And that's why I always say you can credit Ford for your Hellcat. Because if it weren't for the Lightning in 1999, you wouldn't have had the Termi Cobra in 2003 and 2004, and that would mean you would never have had maybe the GT500. Keep in mind that there was no competition really for the Lightning. I mean, you had the SRT-10 truck, but that was like an after thing, and Dodge just went out there to try to beat the Lightning, and it would out mile an hour the Lightning, but it was hard to out quarter mile it. But there was never any real competition for the Terminator Cobra and zero competition for the GT500. See, the thing is at that point in time, there wasn't even a Camaro, and the Challenger hadn't even been released yet. So 05, 06, 07, leading up to 08, GT500 was top of the food chain, and it wasn't until 2015 that Dodge even had an answer to that car. So I don't know, man. I'll start talking about those things. I'm just like memory lane, you know. I just love those things to death. Mike G said, because talking about the cold air thing, said because if I'm not mistaken, the stock 5.7 can't outflow the stock Mopar air filter. Probably not, but I will tell you that the Hellcat air filter, when it is dirty, considered dirty, I think it's 75 grams of material or something like that. It will flow about what a clean 5.7 filter will flow. So really just swapping out the filter will ensure that you never have a airflow deficit. And of course, if you're worried about, well, if I run a K&N or if I run a green filter, just keep in mind that I have done a lot of testing with those, and really nothing has outperformed the Hellcat air filter, at least not based on my data and based on my testing. So something to consider with that. Oh, Mark saying Midnight Club 3 is my favorite game of all time. My favorite car was a 69 Charger RT, and it started my love for Mopar at 8 years old. I love it. That's awesome. Sovereign's hanging out with Mark saying 68 Charger is my first pick, 69 second. I love the look of those round tail lights. My thing is this. I never liked the middle kid when it came to Chargers. I just didn't like the grill. I am a 68 Charger first, 70 Charger second, and 69 last, with the understanding that I'm going to be swapping out some parts up front. But I'm a big fan of the 69 Roadrunner, man. So getting back to that wish list thing. Yeah, it's kind of funny. SRT4 always comes up. In fact, I was at the drag strip Friday night, had a ball with the car. And there were a couple of SRT4s out there, and it always puts a smile on my face to see the SRT4s. In fact, I was kind of happy. Like, Friday night was kind of an interesting night. The temperature was nice. It was like 69 degrees-ish, but I have to go back and look at my time slips because the time slips now have all the DA data on there. Velocicito is in business this evening, boys. So anyway, the funny thing about it is that we were running in, get this, 97 to 98% humidity. And it is the humidity that kills these cars ETs. If I'm running at 97% humidity, I can assure you that that car is down by at least a full tenth in the quarter mile. And so I'm just, I'll just say how the night went. So, get to the track, first in line, make a hit. No mile per hour was shown, but everything else was working fine. Car goes a 155, 160 foot, and it went like a 1047 or something like that. Normally in those temperatures, my car is a 1030 car on the dot, but with those humidities kicking my butt, you lose a tenth. No big deal. I'm out there to have fun. I'm goofing off. I don't really care. In fact, I was running fat last night too. Had actually run on the gauge, between half and 3/4 of a tank of fuel. I mean, I was just out there to have a good time. See everybody and, catch up with everybody. Second pass, 155, 160 foot, 1047, 1046, 1048, whatever it ran. All the miles and hours were 132 and a half-ish, 132.2. Oh, by the way, any given Friday night, before I forget this, on any given Friday night, get on your phone and get the HRP Slips app. HRP Slips on your app, Finder app, the Google Play or whatever. HRP Slips. If you want to know what my car runs, my permanent number is 1122. So, if you want to see what I'm up to, if I'm at the track, just look up 1122. And if you swipe to your left, you can just type in 1122. That's my car number, done. And then swipe back over and it'll bring up my runs from that night. So, anyway, getting back to it, that's how you can keep up with me at the drag strip. Basically any Friday night, just look up my car number and it'll give you quarter mile time, density, altitude, 60 foot, the whole bit. You'll see my time slip. Anyway, all night, 1551 or 1550, 60 foot, and a 1040 something at 132 point something miles per hour. So anyway, had a ball, had a really good time, got a chance to see a lot of folks and to visit with a lot of folks, which is always fun for me. So we're saying those neons with that power plant can move. So let me tell you how fast those things can be because they don't weigh anything. It was not uncommon, and it still isn't uncommon for the guys that run those cars for a street neon or for a street SRT4 to be fairly solidly in the low 11-second range. I mean, it can just a good looking, well put together neon, low 11s, mid 11s, no sweat whatsoever on pump gas. They are fast. Don't let anybody fool you with one of those things. Kobe Warren saying, nice, sounded like a Dodge. Yeah, I had no way to tell what it was. It might have been a Dodge. Mark saying, somebody's doing some badass pulls in the background. Yeah, they are. I told y'all. Yeah, Velocito is open for business this evening, fellas. Kobe saying, sounds like me leaving work on payday for sure. Speed Freak's asking, did you see any 60s and 70s muscle cars at the track that are driven in or just full race cars and the modern muscle? Kind of miss seeing the Chevelles, Camaros, and Novas. Every once in a while, you'll see something cool. There was a guy with a really, what I like to call just an old school driver pickup truck, like a 74 pickup truck. That looked good. There's the Chevelles are more prominent as race cars, but every once in a while you'll see some come in. But you're right, that a lot of them just don't get run at the drag strip anymore, which is a real shame. I mean, that's their lineage, right? But you just don't see a whole lot. Most of them are trailer cars, and for the most part, you're going to see a lot of modern hot rods that are down there. I will tell you this, guys. Lots of Mopars. Oh! How am I forgetting to even tell you this? There was a TRX at the drag strip last night. Anybody want to care a guess as far as what the TRX ran? I'll let that question go out for I'll let that go for a couple of minutes. But guesses as far as what the TRX ran at the drag strip last night. Post those up and I'll circle back around to it as we're getting some guesses here. Sovereign saying, not many know about this car, but the Dodge M4S was the car to hit 440 horsepower from a 4-cylinder. It was hitting nearly 200 miles an hour. Was that the mid-engine or rear engine car? This was a car from the 80s too. Very cool. Mike's asking, have you or anybody ever tried out those mini race bullets as a mid muffler swap? Kind of debating it over the mid delete, but it's hard to get the full effect on tiny little laptop speakers. So the thing is that, yeah, I know quite a few guys that have done this. And man, I got to tell you, with some results, your results may vary, but yeah, the small race bullets, they'll shut it up a little bit. They're going to act more like a resonator though than anything else. Some guys will go with like a Hellcat exhaust system, which is basically glass packs. Same idea, by the way. If you've never seen a Hellcat muffler, they're only about that big around. They're like just a can. But yeah, no, I mean, they work. They do give it a little bit. I'll tell you, they give it a better sound in general. One of the issues that you run into with these cars is that they have that X pipe, right? And if you're not in the know, an X pipe usually, on like 99% of the time, what happens with an X pipe is that there's a tone change when the exhaust pulses, primary and secondary pulses are coming together. When the sound pulses hit, they get a little bit shrill. And so an X pipe always has this like shrill type of a sound to it. Some guys like it, but it's always like a sharp sound. Whereas an H pipe always has kind of a more mellow tone to it. It just sounds inherently better. It doesn't have that like you're getting yelled at by your girlfriend sound to it. So I always recommend going with some type of a sound deadener just to shut some of that shrillness off whenever guys do the mid muffler deletes on the cars, on the NA cars. It's like, yeah, I get why you're doing it and it's kind of cool because it's louder, but just change the tone and it'll change your perception of the car too. But they work great, by the way. If you're asking how they work perfect. Goldberg 42 saying, like, start by saying a big thanks to B Mason. Got the arm flex. I like it. Say, install the pedal box. Hey, here we go. On my 20 Scat shaker manual, it was like I was driving a different car and I've only had it for 6 months. Thanks again. Hey, man, I'm happy that you got one, man. For sure. Excellent. Kobe's saying 1147 at 119. Very nice. That's screaming, bro. Someone saying mid-engine popular for the movie Wraith. That's right. Boosted Emmy saying 1210. Alberta saying I'm guessing 12.2 at 109. Speed Freak saying 13.20. TRX run. Good guess, by the way. Speed Freak, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Saying thank you always for the help. Can't thank you enough. Got the arm flex. Thanks, brother. Mike G saying I'd keep the resonators at the end if that makes a difference. Some guys like it, some guys don't. So in my Hellcat, I like not having the resonators back there. But I also have the stock mufflers in place. So we're going for the guesses here for what did the TRX run. One saying 12.2 at 109. That's Alberto. Speed Freak saying 13.20. Sovereign Knight saying 11.3. HU saying 11.9. You know what's funny is that all of y'all are really close. Alberto, though, gets it damn near on the money. So Alberta, the runs that I saw that truck were 1240s at 108 and change. So you win this round, my friend. So yeah, so the thing is that it was running mid 12-second passes, no matter how you shake it, at over 108 miles an hour with the all-terrain tires. I mean, this was a full-on off-road rig that is out there running on, I mean, yeah, it's a drag strip, but I mean, this thing would probably do it on the street. Mid-12s at almost 110 miles an hour. I got to tell you guys, that was really impressive for me because that truck weighs a bazillion pounds and it looked the part, man. I got to tell you, that is a good looking truck. I mean, I'm not saying that it's my cup of tea per se, but I can see it. By the way, there was a Raptor at the track last night. I didn't even pay attention to what it ran. But it wasn't 12s. Anyway, I've actually gunned down some Raptors in Buffy, so there's that. And again, thank you, Speed Freak. I appreciate it, buddy. Let's see. Ryan's asking, what are your opinions on solo catback exhaust for 5.7 Charger RT? I've never heard one, but I have no idea. Sovereign saying, missed it by this much. Missed it by that much. I remember that, man. Get smart. Yep, whenever you'd stay home from school, that was always one of the shows that you would watch. Or at least it was on in the background. So yeah, that truck was actually pretty cool. And that brings us into the next part of the wish list. Put the freaking 6.4 in the truck. What are you thinking, Ram? I never did understand this, and I still don't, and I won't until I see that engine in the truck. Why not the NA64 in an RT version? Call it whatever you want. How are you not going to have that engine in that truck? Blows my mind. Not to mention, where's the Hellcat variant of that thing? Not the TRX, but, you know, again, the Warlock variant of it. You can call it that and then call it whatever you want with the supercharged version of it. But man, how cool would that be? However they're going to tune it, 470, 485, whatever horse in the truck. Why it doesn't have it? Oops, somebody's gurgling around out there. Why that truck doesn't have that power plant, I will never know. It can't be because of fuel economy. It can't be because of anything other than laziness at this stage of the game, because you want to talk about the easiest platform to put a big old engine in. Why not a truck? I mean, why not something that would actually be fast and be kind of cool too? So anyway, that is pretty high on my wish list, you know. If they would have only done it years ago, I would have bought one. That's the thing. So we're not saying 392 Ram is a Ram that would slam. Absolutely. Ryan's asking, if I went with long tube headers with high flow cats on Charger RT 2020, would the stock mufflers be restrictive to keep? No, not at all. So you're scatty. Okay, so here's the thing. RT. Would the RT mufflers be restricted? Your RT stuff is all restricted, brother. I mean, dude, what you need to do is get the long tubes along with the cat back. And I know it's paper like crazy, man. I get it. Just save up. If you're going to keep the car any real length of time, I would absolutely put that system on the car. The cool thing about it, man, is you can probably find some used stuff and pick that up. Always save your stock parts. If you ever go to get rid of the car, you can always swap them back over and, you know, sell your long tubes and your preferred cat back. You can always get rid of that stuff that way. But yeah, no, I would definitely save up and get a different cat back to go along with those long tubes. You will absolutely thank me for that. Let's see. So we're saying if they can fit a V10 in a Ram, then they can put a 392 in one. Yeah, real talk on that, right? Went through all that trouble to figure out how to put a V10 in there and didn't bother to put a 392, which would have been a whole lot easier to do. And they've already done it. I mean, the truck technically has a 392, but it's not the 392. Although that intake on the 392 truck intake is really good. Yeah, the spots are getting hot tonight. Anyway, I do have Revlon sitting in the shop right behind me, and she is on a tire. So anyway, they've already got the parts. They already have the engine. Just make it happen. Ram, Dodge people. I tell you what, I'll go so far as to say this, and this is really no joke. If Dodge put an RT out that was a 392 short bed, regular cab, Warlock-ish truck, 392 pickup truck, I'll tell you this, guys, I would be hard-pressed not to pick one up. I mean, I would be really hard-pressed not to pick one up. Like, I could practically guarantee I would pick one up. I mean, that's how strongly I feel about it. I love hot rod trucks, man. I have, obviously, from Mother Tejas, I have always loved that kind of stuff. And with the fact that you can just simply unbolt the thing to whatever weight you seem to want to get it down to, that's basically like the starting point for like the ultimate fun hot rod. So, I would be on the top of the list of guys to get that truck. Let's see. I saw Renai's laughing. Ryan saying, man, what long tube headers and catback would you recommend? So I would probably, I'd go Cook's long tube headers first and foremost. The fitment, the quality has always been good. There for a minute, I had some funky experiences with Cook's, but Cook's in general nowadays is the absolute best in the business. And my opinion is, if you're going to buy headers, you can always buy cheap, whatever, but I would always default to quality when it comes to anything exhaust related, because it's all about the fitment. It's all about the durability and not having any issues with that ever again. That needs to be a set it and forget it part, and you'll get that with the Cooks. Now, as far as catback goes, I like the MagnaFlow a lot. I like the way that it sounds. It's funny you asked this question, by the way. So I have been thinking about putting a different exhaust on the Mistress, but I haven't found one that I fall in love with, and I am in the baby early on portion of this. For a couple of reasons, though, I want to do this. One, I want to put an H-pipe on the car instead of an X-pipe. And the reason why I want to do that is just for sound. There's no power to be gained or lost here. I've done enough exhaust testing to know that there simply won't be a difference. But I would like to do something like an H-pipe just to have the sound of it. But my first initial recommendation will always be MagnaFlow. They're straight through, flow through exhaust systems. And if you run an X-pipe, in my opinion, you need to run a flow-through muffler. And the reason for that is because a chambered muffler, because you have to remember an X-pipe, you're merging the pulses, and the idea is that you're actually merging these pulses, but they don't actually blend. If you ever watch a cutaway, like an infrared cutaway of how the gases are actually moving, there is some area where you will have the pulse, the actual exhaust gas pulse, get split and it goes into the two different sides. But typically they do this. They just hug the sides of the pipe with very little bleeding over. And what ends up happening is if you have a chambered muffler, the there's going to be a reversion pulse off of those chambers, depending on how chambered they are, like a Flowmaster or Delta chamber, something like that. You're not going to get as much, but you still will get a reversion pulse. And that reversion pulse can, depending on where and what RPM you're at, because this is RPM dependent and RPM variance, but it can actually kind of screw things up a little bit with the X pipe itself. The X pipe, it's like a backflow almost. Whereas with an open muffler, it just keeps flowing right out the tailpipe and, goes off in the atmosphere. So I've just noticed in my testing over the years that X pipes work great with flow through designs. H pipes work great with whatever you stick on them, because that reversion, when it's coming back up the exhaust pipe, say on this side over here, the reversion is coming back on this side of the pipe, it doesn't have to interfere. There's a balance tube there. So any reversions, that balance tube is going to take care of, any weird, oscillations or anything like that. That was at least my understanding of it. And again, when I did all the testing, at least the results would bear out that hypothesis anyway. So again, if you're going for straight through mufflers for your X pipe, that'd be the way to go. And Magnaflow has that. Okay, we're saying TRX getting that 8 miles per gallon. Very nice. Sovereign Knight saying branded as the 392 Voodoo. Actually, the Voodoo nomenclature was used for the GT350 engine. I would just bring back the Warlock name. It goes great with Hellcat, Red Eye, Demon. Now you got the TRX, and then you got the Warlock truck. I mean, I think that would be cool as hell, man. It would round out I don't know, it would just kind of round out the whole, I don't know, I can't really say SRT experience, but you've got the 392 Jeep. Where's the 392 truck? We've got the 392 cars. It's got to come, Ryan saying with cost efficient and performance in mind, that's the main thing. And don't try to tart the thing up. Make it a hot rod. I'm kind of in that with you. Let's see. Sovereign's hanging out with Cody. And yeah, that gas mileage. Cody's saying, I have heard that the mile per gallon is not good at all. Man, let me tell you something. So that truck, first of all, I don't see how the miles per gallon could be good. So that truck weighs about 6,500 pounds or something obnoxious like that. It's got tires on it that are huge, which means heavy, high rotating weight, with tires with a lot of rotating resistance. I would assume, with them being the all-terrains that they are. So yeah, that thing's got it. Plus, it's a Hellcat engine. You have your foot in it all the time. I mean, yeah, you're gonna get bad gas mileage. Ryan saying, thank you, love your detailed description. Hey, no, man, happy to. For sure. Yeah, and I've done I'll tell you what, I've done so much exhaust testing. I'm exhausted with exhaust testing. Haha. Bum bum. Ding. So no, the funny things that I learned though along the way, a lot of it had to do with catalytic converter testing and what it did or didn't do, more to the point, for performance. And it was weird. You would get some systems that would seem to do well, but that system would usually only do well based on scavenging effects. You might remember the old Mac power chamber. I haven't even thought about the Mac power chamber in forever, but that was a system that always performed very well. It was basically, it didn't have an X or an H pipe. It was the pipes fed into a box. And so you'd have pipe, and they would feed into this, like if you can imagine a box around my head, right? The pipes would come in, terminate in the box, and then they would start back out of the box and just keep going. And it was a pretty smart way of going about it. You basically were making this giant low pressure area for the gas, relatively speaking, obviously, but a low pressure area. and you had turned the, you could call them downpipes at this point, from your headers to that box would be kind of like a header extension on a dyno. And so they made really, really good power. And I've never even thought to see if there was a power chamber for our cars. But anyway, that was the premise behind it, is just that, you know, you would dump this high pressure coming out of the actual pipe itself into this box. And then from there, the box, you know, the pressure would just find the easiest way out of the tailpipes, and it would just pick whatever hole it wanted, because there was nothing directing it. It was just pressure coming into a lower pressure area being put into two mufflers and sent out into the world. And so always, it was genius in its simplicity, and it just worked really, really freaking well. There's a big part of me, by the way, that wants to put that setup on Foxy. But that being said, I got to put a clutch, and it looks like it is the timing cover leaking. I've got to get a clutch in that car and then validate my thoughts on whether or not it is the timing cover leaking. But, oh God, I got too many projects. Anyway, Ryan saying last one. Let's see. So that would be my, getting back to the wish list. So that would be my want for the trucks. I would want the Warlock to come back. Little Red Express would be a little bit hard to market nowadays, but the Warlock would be really easy. And then what else? Obviously something along the lines of the SRT4 would be neat, but you know, with modern safety standards and what folks will just put up with nowadays, I just don't think that anybody is going to, I just honestly don't think that anybody's going to go for one of those. I'll tell you what, they're heading out. Like there's just like 3 or 4 of them just buzzed by. Anyway, I don't know if anybody would actually go for it, but that'd be really cool. Another thing that I would like to see. You hear that one? Anyway, another thing that I would like to see, you call me crazy on this, but walk with me here. You noticed that we have the Durango, we have the Grand Cherokee, but there's not like a Tahoe-like SUV out there. In other words, there's not a Ram-based SUV. The Ram Charger be another great addition to the Ram lineup. I mean, look at how many Tahoes sell. And to be honest with you, Tahoe, I mean, it's not a monopoly because there's other SUVs that are out there. But when's the last time anybody was even talking about the Expedition? It's weird. I forget that the Expedition is even still in production, but yet you see a bazillion Tahoes every day and you don't even think about it. The Ram Charger was an incredibly good SUV. Bring that thing back. And while you're bringing stuff back on truck platforms, if not the Ram Charger, bring back the Grand Wagoneer, because that is my all-time favorite SUV. I've always wanted one. My uncle had one growing up. Absolutely love that thing. We used to go 100 miles an hour through the on these old dirt roads up in Lubbock. And anyway, he just humming along 100 miles an hour like it was nothing, just zzz, this old Wagoneer. Anyway, bring back that thing. And I mean, do it right. Don't do it like the FJ thing that Toyota did to try to do it. Do it the right way. I think that would be epic, because, you know, there's so much you can do with one of these truck-based, you know, real SUVs, not these lifestyle SUVs, like a real live genuine SUV. Those would be something cool to bring back. And I would love to see that mainly not only just from my own personal, like that's what I love, right? But I would like to see it as a direct line of sight competitor to the Tahoe. And it just bums me out that we keep seeing these things that are, with the retro styling you could get away with on that Wagoneer would be unbelievable. But you wouldn't have to do much of anything to, graft on a camper shell onto a short bed truck and you got a Ram Charger, right? So anyway, and if you could make the thing fully convertible, because that would be super cool. Let's see. Sovereign saying it's saying the combined miles per gallon on the TRX is 12 miles per gallon, so 8 might be a valid number. Oh, I don't doubt that a bit. Sovereign saying 12 puts it slightly better than a 70 Dodge Challenger with a 440. 10.5. Racer X checking in saying, what's happening, brother? Got the fizz pumps. I like it. Very nice. The Racer X hanging out with Sovereign Knight. Alberto is saying, I think Jeep is bringing back the Grand Wagoneer with the 6.4 Hemi, but it's going to cost big dollar signs. The one that I saw, it was kind of Grand Wagoneer, although it would be really cool if it did have the 6.4. What I'm thinking of is a little bit more retro in terms of styling, obviously on the truck platform. If they are bringing it back, and I saw that, and it looked good, but it was a little bit overly fresh, if you know what I mean. But either way, I'll take what I can get. And again, that Ram Charger idea would be ridiculous. That's another one I'd be one of the first in line to get. Either a Ram Charger, a proper Grand Wagoneer on the truck platform, or that 6.4 truck. A Hellcat truck, in that configuration, here's my thing with that. That would be kind of cool. Well, don't get me wrong, it'd be really cool. But the 6.4 is a little bit cooler for guys that remember and at least understand and study the whole hot rodding era. But it's a cool throwback type of vehicle. And it really does play on a lot of Mopar history to have that Warlock / Little Red Express available, because that's an NA hot rod that was it was the fastest truck, car, whatever of its day. And it was taking advantage of some loopholes with trucks that for emissions and things like that. So anyway, I always thought it was kind of a cheeky way to build a hot rod. And of course it's a truck, and I like hot rod pickup trucks. So, let's see. Mark saying my favorite SUVs are those mid to late 2000s WK1 SRT8 Grand Cherokees with the 6.1s. Those are neat. See those a lot down here with the 6.1s. I almost break my neck when I look to turn and look one on the street, for sure. I bet. Tom's asking, what are your thoughts on the eTorque 5.7 Hemi powertrain in the new Rams? Buddy mine's got one. He seems to like it. So, I don't know if it just doesn't kick on when the truck is, when you're just freaking skeeter eater. When you're playing around with it on the track or whatever. I don't think he's taken that truck to the track. In fact, I know he hadn't taken the truck to the track. It works fairly well. It's kind of a weird hybrid system. It's kind of like a supercharger in reverse. But it's supposed to be pretty cool. I think it's a little gimmicky personally, but you know what? If it works, it works. And that's the most important thing about those types of enhancements. I know that there for a while, there was a very similar type of a product that some guys were testing. I think they're going to bring it to market for the LS platform. And basically what it was you got, it was a battery, an inverter, a few other things. And it was this big ass electric motor with a cog system on it. And it was in essence the same thing as an eTorque, just ramped up quite a bit. And it had a high voltage power source, and it was supposed to add like 70 pound-feet of torque to the thing, basically when you went to wide open throttle. But I don't think it ever really gained any traction because to really do it right, you would have to have a slipper on that thing. And really, I don't know that there was any way to make it work. But I know that somebody was trying to put one together like that. I think the only issue is that it was constantly spinning the internals of that big electric motor. So it may have, hurt it in terms of, miles per gallon, is it, Harley? In terms of miles per gallon or, anything partial throttle. But anyway, the eTorque seems to work pretty well, and the guys that use it for towing like it. But I know that it only adds that power for a short amount of time. Eric saying, I would love to see a new version of Little Red Express. Would be kind of cool. Marco's checking in saying 5.7 Hemi with headers and cam. Love my truck. Now kicks. Yeah, that's... the fun thing about the trucks is they do respond well to that. The one thing is that you do have to remember that the knock sensors, those trucks are just noisy. So somebody said no. That's definitely LS powered. But what you have to remember about the trucks is that they're just noisy. I don't know what the deal is with their knock sensors. They're just a little bit more skittish from the factory. So it's when you get one, you almost have to put a tune on it just to numb the knock sensors a little bit. And some are saying 30 watchers, 30 likes. Nice. Yes. Thank you everybody for hitting that like button. And if you're new to the live shows, subscribe. I do these twice a week. Marco's asking, what do you like better, classic Ram or new body? It depends. I love the old boxy Rams, and I always will. There's some drawbacks to those things, though. The aftermarket just does not support them very well. Nothing like the Chevrolets and the Fords, but I do like the look of the old body style Rams a lot. The new body style Rams are pretty cool, and what comes along with those new body style Rams is a very powerful 5.7 liter Hemi, far superior transmission, reliability that can't even be in the same solar system as what came with the older vehicles, whether it was Ram or Chevy, Dodge, or whoever. So when you look at it, it depends on what part of it you're looking at, but from a looks standpoint, man, an old school square body Dodge that stands out just right, real tough to beat in my book. Let's see. Oh, Tom's saying FCA purchased the rights to the eTorque system from GM years ago. Yeah, that's probably, again, it's just one of those things when you look at it, you go, oh yeah, it looks familiar. But yeah, those types of systems, you look at them and you can tell, look, that is absolutely transitional technology. That's a Band-Aid type of a technology, but it works. And that's the thing. You can't fault it for what it is, and you certainly can't fault it for how it performs. So I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of cool the way that they can integrate those types of things. What would be really neat would be, it would be if they could integrate something in the transmission itself, like at the flex plate or at the transmission drive line somewhere in there, just have it spinning the electric motor. And then when you get on it, it immediately electrifies it right there at the transmission. That might be a little bit cleaner install. Certainly would make, under a hood stuff a whole lot easier. That's for sure. So we're not saying cruising USA. I remember that video game too, man. That was a fun one. But yeah, as far as wish lists go, though, it's hard. It's hard to say really what my personal wish list is when you're dealing with a company that has to still market to not car people. And that's the thing. It's interesting because Dodge Dodge is really good at marketing to car guy and car gal. Dodge is really good at marketing to car guy and car gal. And because of that, you get a sense that they're always going to make something that is going to cater to that market. Because believe me, without that market, that brand ain't going nowhere. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of the brand under Stellantis leadership and under Stellantis guidance, I should say. Because basically, you know, a lot of the same leadership roles are being filled by the same people that were obviously captaining this thing under FCA. I would just love to see where the vision is going to land with some of these guys, because to me, you know, everybody's talking about, well, you know, electrification and all this other stuff. What I don't want to see, and this is what I was talking about earlier, is yes, my ultimate like fantasy hot rod would be one of these electrified, you know, 700, 800, 900 horse electric vehicles with, you know, a 2, 3, 4-speed automatic that keeps this thing in high load conditions for as long as possible. Through the quarter mile. I mean, one of these things would just be amazing and just crazy fast and all of that. But you got to remember that all of that crazy fast comes for a crazy price tag, and it's just, it's a little bit tough to swallow. So again, staying with the naturally aspirated and supercharged stuff that we have now, in other words, gasoline, that would be awesome to again see a remarriage or at least a hookup between Stellantis, previously FCA, and Mercedes on that new C-Class and E-Class coupe type of a platform. And from there, you know, yeah, it would be cool for the truck-based stuff and all the things that would seemingly make financial sense, but we'll just have to see what ends up happening, and I'm hoping that in a short amount of time, we'll start hearing something cool coming from our favorite brand real soon. Let's see, Marco is saying, asking, you think they'll make an SRT Ram, not off-road vehicle like TRX? That's what I was just talking about. So back in the day, like back in the day, Dodge released 2 trucks. One was the Little Red Express, and the other one was the Warlock. They're just real. Warlock, a lot of folks never heard of them, but Little Red Express got a lot of the pub because it had the stacks and everything else. And it was cool because it was kind of an outlaw move on the part of Dodge. There at the time was a provision that cars had to meet a certain standard for the EPA in terms of emissions and pollutants and all that, which at that time was detrimental to horsepower and performance. But the trucks didn't have to meet those strict standards. They had to meet a standard, just nothing near that strict. And so Dodge said, okay, we're going to take our biggest small block, put it into our smallest truck, and we're going to make a hot rod out of it. And it turns out it was faster than the Vet for the years that it was out. So pretty cool stuff. Well, to be able to build on that legacy, I mean, they're not the first manufacturer to build a hot rod pickup truck. Chevrolet had one called I forget actually what it was called. Anyway, you get a big block, you know, C10 or a big block C25 or C10 GMC. You could always get the big block in the 3/4 ton. So anyway, but it was nothing new, but this was something cool that they did. Again, kind of a cool move on their part to kind of outflank the rules, basically gaming the system, which in this case, I like that. And it would be cool to see him go back to that heritage. And again, from a marketing standpoint, you have to understand how this marketing story literally just basically writes itself. I mean, we're bringing the Warlock back. It ties into the Demon. It ties into the Hellcat. It ties into these scary names, Red Eye, all these scary names that these Dodges have now. It ties in with that. You got a hot rod pickup truck. It does a lot of cool things. You can show it doing burnouts and at the drag strip and all this other stuff. And yeah, it would be really cool from a marketing standpoint because, again, it falls back on that heritage where Dodge was actually doing something pretty cool. You know, the Hemi name, you know, was a big deal in terms of power. The Warlock and Little Red Express represent kind of that outlaw heritage of Dodge. You know, to be able to bring those things into the conversation would be huge. And if nothing else, man, it's a freaking gimme. I mean, it's just so, it should be so easy to market. I just don't see how they're not doing it. I mean, y'all have heard me talking about this now forever, and they still haven't done it. So they're not listening to me. But if they ever do, you heard it here first. Marco's saying, talk about Little Red Express. That thing was quick. Yep. Sovereign saying, Marco, there was the SRT-10 Ram. Yeah, but before that, way before that, was the Little Red Express. Marco saying, 5-liter Ford or the 5.7 Hemi. I think they need to make Rams lighter and it would be better. Yeah, so let me just tell you this, guys, man, that 5-liter Ford truck is real hard to mess with. That 5 liter is making great power now. It makes power everywhere, and it's in a lighter truck. So you already know how that race goes. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I would, from a performance standpoint, I don't know that I would pick the Dodge over the Ford in that respect. Now, that being said, man, the Dodge is just nice to drive. They're fast for a truck. Even though it may not come up on a time slip, relatively speaking, they are fast for a truck. Certainly they can get out of their own way. And so I'll tell you that, man, there's a lot of everything at the drag strip, and there's a lot of hot rod Ford pickups at the drag strip. Let me just tell you that right now. So which one would I rather have? Man, had my eye on that Ford pickup for a while. Probably would lean in that direction. Only because of one reason. And this is where I kind of soapbox it a little bit, but you know, we've been dealing with this Hemi tick issue for a long time. My 2014 had it. My 2017 had it. And a lot of guys are still running into this problem in 2020 and 2021. None of the Fords are running into that annoying little problem. And I don't like annoying little, I don't like any problems, right? And you know my stance on problems. Problems ain't a problem until the problem's a problem. But in this case, I got to take exception to it because that problem's been a problem since the problem started in 2014 or 13 or whatever. And the problem stayed a problem because the problem's remained a problem, not a fixed problem to this day. So I'm not going to say that the Dodge gets a vote of no confidence from me because we've got nothing but Dodge trucks in the fleet. They're all Hemis and they all run great. Problem is, out of the 24, 26, 22 trucks we have in the fleet, I would say that all of them have had the Hemi tick issue and all of them have had some kind of other issues as well. So it's a little bit tough for me to remain on Team Ram if they keep having those problems. And I don't understand this whole deal about exhaust manifold bolts backing out. You know how long they've had exhaust manifolds? Since about as long as they've had engines. And they've affixed those exhaust manifolds with, you guessed it, bolts. They've had aluminum heads for about as long as they've had engines, and they've had cast iron exhaust manifolds for the exact same amount of time. See what I'm going with this? So anyway, just my thoughts on that. Let's see. Marco's hanging out with Sovereign. Let's see. Alberta's saying, my Mopar wish list is new motors or updates so their current motors, especially the 5.7s. And yeah, I've been saying that for a while, man. The 5.7 and the 6.4 need an update. The 5.7, man, look, if the thought process on the 5.7 is that you don't want to encroach on the 6.4's territory in terms of power and all that, because you can with a 5.7, That's really not a good way to look at it, because you almost get the sense that the 5.7 is just simply not allowed to live up to its potential. Now, I don't like buying vehicles on potential, because potential ain't there. But potential is a hope. It's a dream. But I don't like the idea that the 5.7 just simply could be better, especially in the cars where it doesn't get the benefit of a short runner or a variable runner intake manifold the way that the truck has. And there's a big power difference there, by the way, to the tune of about 20, 25 horsepower. So the fact that the car and the Durango, by the way, I didn't even know. I was like, when hanging out with a buddy of mine, Chris, was going, yeah, I go, yeah, it's the 395, right? He goes, no, they don't have the variable runner intake. And I'm going, what? What are you talking about? You got me kidding me. But it's true. The Durango does not have the variable runner intake, and that is a bit of a problem, because that's kind of a flagship vehicle. And for it to not have the 395 horse variant is a bit of a problem, especially in lieu of the fact that there is absolutely no fuel economy penalty to pay for that variable runner intake manifold. In fact, you might even pick up a mile per gallon or two. And see, it's at these crossroads that I become cross with Dodge, Ram, Jeep, question mark? Jeep, only because they don't offer the 5.7 in the Wranglers. And that just, I don't get it. Wranglers are heavy. They offer this little anemic 3.6 liter. I don't care how many horsepowers it has. My wife has got a 3.8 liter, 3.8 V6 in her Jeep. It's got a 4-speed automatic. That Jeep has significantly better throttle response than any of the 3.6s that I've driven. And the 3.6s are supposed to make basically 70 or 80 horsepower more than my wife's Jeep. But my wife's Jeep doesn't even get to the RPM that those other V6s get to when they wake up. Like, I was like, I don't understand this. This is stupid. Why are you going to have an engine in a thing that's supposed to be able to crawl around on rocks with a power band that is that, like, ill-suited to the task? It's just not right. That's why I was like, man, the 3.8, little slow revving, snappy little V6 is awesome in my wife's Jeep. I love driving that thing. It's a real torquey little thing. So, 200 horsepower. What's not to love, man? Anyway, it's a little hot rod. Getting back to it. Let's see. Sovereign saying, my Mopar wish list is pretty much a newer Dodge Challenger with a 5.7 or a 6.4. Yeah, I can understand that too, man. That's kind of where we started the show. So with that, we're coming up. Actually, we're over 2 hours. Go ahead and wrap it up. Want to thank each and every one of you guys. Love each and every one of y'all. Thank y'all very much for hanging out. Couldn't do this show without you. So with that, we're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. And get your shots. By the way, I just got mine. That's why I'm all itchy. So there's where they stabbed me. I'm officially inoculated, at least for my first go around. Get your shots and stay safe out there, guys. And I will catch y'all on the next one. Be safe. And that's a wrap. Adios.